I've held on to this story for a long time. Some nights I wonder if it would have been better to just let it die with the past. But the memory keeps creeping back when the air is heavy and the world feels just a little too still. Maybe it's time someone else knew. It happened about 7 years ago, after the great flood down in Hollow Creek, Louisiana. Most folks fled when the river rose, taking what they could carry. The water swallowed homes, churches, even the old post office where Miss Ellie had worked for 40 years. Some say the town never really out. It just shifted into another kind of place. I had a buddy, Jimmy T., who claimed he saw strange things wandering those drowned streets long after the water had receded. We used to sit outside Merv's diner, nursing black coffee into the early hours, and he'd tell me about it. Ghostly figures standing in windows, children's laughter echoing from empty schoolyards. At first, I figured he'd been hitting the bottle too hard. Then one night, Jimmy didn't show up. No calls, no notes. He was just gone. 3 weeks passed before I decided to find out for myself what had gotten into him. It was a moonless night when I drove out there. The road to Hollow Creek was barely more than a cracked ribbon of asphalt winding through cypress and swamp. Mist clung to the trees, and the air smelled like wet earth and something else, something metallic. When I reached the edge of town, I killed the headlights. The silence was crushing. No crickets, no frogs, no whisper of breeze. Just that thick, unnatural quiet. I walked past the ruins of the general store. Shelves still leaned against broken walls, cans of peaches and beans rusting where floodwaters had left them. Overhead, the power lines sagged like dead snakes. I made my way to the old elementary school, where Jimmy had said the children still played. And that's when I heard it. A faint giggle. Not a bird, not an animal. A child's laugh, high and clear, coming from the darkness. My blood ran cold. I tried to tell myself it was the wind twisting through broken glass. But the sound came again, closer this time. And then, the shuffle of tiny footsteps on wet gravel. I turned the corner and saw the swings. They were moving, not wildly, not like some gust had caught them. Just a slow, steady back and forth, as if an unseen child was pumping their legs, gaining momentum. I wanted to run. Every fiber of my being screamed to get back in the truck and leave this cursed place behind. But I stayed, because that's what you do when you know that truth, real truth, is just a breath away. I stepped closer. The swings creaked on their rusted chains. The laughter faded, replaced by a low whisper, a sound like pages turning in a forgotten book. And that's when I saw him, a little boy, maybe 8 years old, standing just beyond the swings. His clothes were soaked, clinging to his small frame. His hair dripped water onto the cracked blacktop. He didn't move, didn't blink, just stared at me with eyes so hollow, so ancient, they seemed to belong to another world entirely. He opened his mouth as if to speak, and then the world around me shifted. The air thickened, the ground seemed to tilt, and for a heartbeat I wasn't standing in a ruined schoolyard anymore. I was somewhere deeper, somewhere older, somewhere I should not have been. Part 2. I blinked, and the schoolyard snapped back into view. The boy was gone. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst through my ribs. I stumbled backward, nearly falling over a chunk of broken concrete. I told myself to leave, to get back to the truck and drive until daylight. But something rooted me to the spot. A voice, soft, sad. Not from the boy, but from somewhere else. It seemed to come from the old gymnasium. "Hell bus," it whispered. The doors hung crookedly on their hinges, yawning open into blackness. I fumbled for my flashlight.
but the beam barely pierced the heavy dark inside. The floorboards creaked underfoot as I entered. The gym smelled of mold and rot, the stench of things long dead. My light swept across the faded lines of a basketball court, over overturned bleachers, and finally onto a figure hunched against the far wall. It was a woman, or what was left of one. Her dress, once white, was stained dark with mud and time. Her hair hung in wet, matted clumps around her face. She looked up when the light hit her, and her eyes, Lord, those eyes, were wells of endless sorrow. She lifted one trembling hand and pointed behind me. I turned. Painted on the wall in smeared, dripping letters was a single word: remember. Suddenly, the gym was alive with movement. Shadowy figures flitted through the corners of my vision. Children, adults, their faces twisted in pain and terror. Their mouths moved in silent screams.
I backed toward the door, never taking my eyes off the horror unfolding around me. And just before I stumbled out into the night, the woman spoke again, her voice no louder than a sigh. "Don't forget us." I ran. I didn't look back. The town of Hollow Creek vanished in my rearview mirror, swallowed by mist and memory. I never found Jimmy T. Some say he drowned. Others say he just disappeared, taken by the same thing that haunts that town. Sometimes when the nights are cold and the fog creeps low, I can still hear the laughter, still smell the wet earth, still see the word burned into my mind: remember. And I do. God help me, I do.